Hey guys, Popular Mechanic here. We're in the shop today. It's Sunday. I did get my 385 put back together. It runs pretty good. I'm gonna fire it up for you today, but I want to talk a little bit about the first video. I made some mistakes, and my degree wheel was actually off by 3 degrees. I'm not sure why. I think it has to do with the pressure I was putting on when it was at bottom dead center. Like when I pushed it down, I wasn't pushing hard enough and it kind of fudged at 3 degrees. So thanks to Ben Timmers for pointing out that that was probably the problem. And there was a way that you can use math to figure that out. So I'll show you guys those equations. But first, I just want to thank everybody for helping me with this video. And thanks, 1,000 subs. That's awesome, guys. I made it to, I think I'm close to 1,050 now. So that's awesome. And I wanted to show all the porting and stuff, guys, on video, and that was really my plan, but it's just the weather just got warm and I'm back cutting trees and things like that. But I can show you exactly what I did. I can show you what the numbers are. There was a few things that I didn't get to do that I wanted to do, and there's reasons for that, and I'll explain that. So yeah, just thanks to Ben Timmers for pointing out that I'm an idiot in the nicest way possible. I appreciate that, buddy. Thanks to Iron Horse for answering all my questions, and point me in the right direction with the numbers and stuff I was trying to reach. Selvtech commented on my first video as well. I appreciate that, buddy. Even though it wasn't much, it still helps me. Just tell me, don't push that intake too far. Saw Grader, he helped me out probably the most on this, and he ports saws quite a bit, and I'll leave a link below to his channel. I think he's actually taken on saws, so if you guys are looking for someone to build your saws, I'll leave a link to his channel in the description below. Saw Grader is his name. I think his thing's called Juice Saws or something like that. And yeah, that's basically it. So I'll leave that link below so you guys will want to check out his stuff. He's far beyond me. He's got the time to do it, and he does a really good job according to his videos there. He makes some nice running, good looking saws. So you'll have to check that out. All right, guys, we'll set you up on the bench and we'll get to that part. Okay, guys, so here was my original numbers for the highway piston and cylinder. The exhaust opened at 96 degrees after top dead center, closed at 84 degrees, and my duration was 168, which is high for exhaust, which is why I opted to take 26 thousandths off the base. The intake was 77, closes at 77 after top dead center, opens at 103 degrees after bottom dead center, which gave me 154. So I did have some room to drop that without exceeding 160, which what I was trying to do on both ends, but my exhaust did end up at 160. So anyways, my wheel was off. At first I thought it was 93, and everyone said that's really high, because that would be a really high duration, 93. So that's when I figured out that something was wrong. So here's some equations I used to figure it out. Basically what I did was I found the duration of the port using the ray of light trick. I actually counted on the wheel. So from when it opened to when it closed, I actually counted the physical degrees. And then I went by the duration to find the top dead center, and that's how I found that I was off. So basically, here's the equations that you can use for figuring this out. So finding the duration from open after top dead center. So if you know you're on bottom dead center, you can take 96, which is when it opens, multiply that by 2. That gives you 192. You take 360 degrees, which represents the wheel, a full cycle. You subtract 192, and that'll give you your duration, which is 168. Finding when it closes is just as simple. You take 180, subtract it from when it opens after top dead center, and that'll give you 84 degrees. And then this is the way that I had to go about it to find out that I was off on the degree wheel, because if you're off, things won't add up. Like, as far as I know, these two numbers should equal 180 degrees. That doesn't mean that that's your duration. That just means that you're on the right track. These two numbers added up should equal 180. Okay, so once you have your duration, and one more thing I wanted to point out to you guys, is you don't necessarily have to have bottom dead center and this and that all figured out. It obviously helps, and you will get into that, but to find your duration, you could actually start the wheel at 0 where the where the first ray of light is, then actually go until it closed and count those degrees, and that's how you can get your duration. That's another method to get your duration. Okay, so once you have your duration, so finding exhaust open from your duration is you take 168 degrees, so that's my duration, however you want to figure that out. You divide that by 2, that will give you 84, and then you take 180 minus 84 will give you 96 degrees. So my exhaust open, and once my exhaust open at 96 after top dead center. So once you figure, it's a good way to check your work, sort of. It took me a while to kind of figure out that I was wrong, like that I was off bottom dead center, but the numbers just weren't adding up. Another thing I discovered in my work here is if you add the durations, okay, 168 and 154, if you add those together, you'll notice that doesn't actually add up to 360. And the reason for that is because there's a time when both the ports are closed, okay? So if you actually subtract the exhaust, if you subtract, I kind of just say subtract the top dead centers, okay? So if you were to subtract 96 minus 77, that'll give you a number, and then you subtract the bottom dead centers, 103 minus 84. That will give you two numbers, which when they're combined with 168 and 154 will give you 360 degrees. And that's just something I kind of figured out doing it. And it worked out really well. So that way I knew I was on the right track. So anyways, that's how I discovered I was off. Thanks, Ben Timmers, again for pointing that out. And also those are some equations that are going to help you make sure to check your work and that you're on the right track. All right, guys, now we'll move to actually, I'll show you. So anyways, so that was my numbers. And after I got I used the machinist bluing paint to make some marks on the piston there. And then I rotated it using Iron Horse's trick there to find out how many thousandths were in a degree. So it turned out to be about 12,800. I just kind of bumped it up to 26,000. So that's what I took off the base. And that in turn made my exhaust open at 98, which is still, I was kind of shooting for 100, but the lower you go, the higher the intake duration goes. And I didn't want to get into epoxy and all that stuff. So my exhaust is 164, which is a little bit high, but I think it'll be fine. And then my intake is 158. And keep in mind, every thousandth, like say you take off the roof or the floor, whatever it is, if you add, say I take 12,800 off, that's 1 degree, but essentially it increases your duration by 2 because it opens sooner and closes later, depending on what you're working on, if that makes any sense. So I just wanted to point that out to you guys. And now I'll show you the Meteor cylinder, just because my 385 is put together, and I'll show you what kind of work I did on it. Okay, guys, so if we take a look at the Meteor cylinder here, now I opted to use the highway cylinder, but I just want to show you some of the work that I did. This one has nothing done, but this edge here, closest to where the piston is, like the inside of the cylinder, I didn't knife edge it. I left a little brim, but I widened this up, okay? And then basically I ground this down, and when I was grinding, I was keeping in mind that you want air to flow this way to hit the top of the intake, okay? That's what Iron Horse says, so that's what I did, okay? So I kept those angles in mind, that I wanted that, and then I also took compressed air and shot it through and kind of felt with my hand. It actually worked pretty good to tell, what kind of shapes and stuff I was going for. So yeah, so I didn't do anything real deep down inside here. I just kind of stuck to the outer edge. You want to be careful. I did nick this outer edge a little bit, not on purpose, but I'm just learning and stuff, but it seemed to be fine when I put it together. There's no air leaks or anything like that. But you don't want to do too much, if anything, right here, because you got to remember that's where it seals. If you just want to touch it a little bit, I'm sure that's not a big problem. But anyways, so that's what I did to the transfers. Now, initially, I was going to raise these transfers to increase, or sorry, to decrease my blowdown. But the problem I ran into with the highway cylinder is that it chipped very easily. And I just noticed that on these edges here, and I was being real careful and cautious, but I just noticed it chipped, and I didn't really want to take a chance. And another thing that stopped me from doing that is my right angle thing is a little bit bulky, so it made it tough to kind of work in here inside the cylinder. So unfortunately, I didn't get that done. I sort of ran out of time, and I just wanted to get her back together, but it's something I'm definitely going to do in the future because I'm curious to see how that works. So anyways, that's what I did. When we got to the intake side, I did very little. I just kind of cleaned up this edge here. I didn't take a whole bunch. I just took off the casting imperfections. I did do those lines that Iron Horse did. I just made those cutter lines to keep that fuel in suspension. And then I did do the finger ports. Now mine weren't quite as pretty as his, but they did work. So, or they seemed to have worked. So I just came in here on the roof of the intake and made those finger ports. And then I roughed up the top, like I said, with those lines. And so that's basically what I did. And then I got right around here, I took it to the shop, and they took 26 thousandths off the base. Upon doing that, my piston was hitting the roof here. And I used a little trick I learned online. It's probably not the best way to do this. The guy said he could machine it, but I mean, basically what I did is I took another cylinder. I got that sticky sandpaper, a fine grit, and then I just made up a jig and turned it in the drill, and I just kept turning it, cleaning it, checking it until and I did overshoot it a little bit. My squish wasn't as tight as I wanted it. It's a bit over 20 thousandths, which shouldn't be too bad. It's not a huge deal, but you know, it was my first go, so I don't think it was too bad at all. So that's basically all I did to this saw. I haven't checked the compression or anything like that yet, but I will. But I want to fire it up today, so let's get into firing this saw up. Okay guys, so I just wanted to show you the saw real quick. Everything's back together. There's no base gasket. I used some of that gasket sealant stuff. And I also wanted to thank the guys that are pointing out Durco and all that stuff. I do know it's better stuff. I just have to get around to ordering some for my next builds if I ever get time again to do one. But anyways, yeah, that's her. She's all back together. Oh, one more thing I did too is because I was getting fairly close to the top here, I added another spacer from a different spark plug just to make sure I was away from that, because I know it was getting pretty close. Like, it wasn't hitting or anything, but I knew it was close. So I just added another spacer in there. Okay guys, let's fire it up. All right, so here we go. Cold start on the 385 with the 390 piston and cylinder highway kit on it. So she sounds pretty good, boys. I've just been running her lightly like that. You don't necessarily have to rev it right up, and it's because it can be hard on it, but when it's not under load. But I mean, that little bit's not going to hurt it. Anyways, I don't know. It feels pretty good. I did have it in some wood, but not substantial wood. I just don't have any wood kicking around the yard. But I have a hunch it's going to be running a lot better than it was. It sounds really good, and I'm going to run it in the field for a while, guys. And I promise I'll put a video. There won't be any music. I'll let you listen to the saw. I'm going to run it in the field for a while, make sure everything's good. And then once it stands the test of time, I'm probably going to get the exhaust done on it, because this one has no exhaust. I think I'm just going to go with the one pipe right on the side for this one. and we'll see what happens. So that's what I'm going to do with that. But anyways, just awesome, guys. It's amazing when you put it all back together and it fires up. I just think it's really cool. Let's fire it up one more time. Holy shit, she's got more compression than I'm used to there, boys. Look, in your yarded my arm off. Anyways, guys, that concludes this segment. I just want to say thanks again, guys, for the 1,000 subs, all the help. I just hope this thing runs and lasts as good as I want it to. I cleaned up all my edges. I used the diamond ball, and I sanded everything. So I'm hoping that everything goes well. And for my first saw with the degree wheel, I don't think it's too bad. I really wanted to get that blowdown down, but I just didn't want to take a chance. You know, you got to have the proper tools to get in there, and everything has to be super accurate, you know, so they're all even. I know a lot of you guys out there can do it, and I appreciate that. I just, you know, when you're cutting trees full time, it's tough to have hobbies like this unless it's real cold out. And like I said, it's starting to warm up. Anyways, guys, like, comment, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.